Hi everyone, it's Agnieszka from 5 Minute Language. Welcome to my channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. So you're probably here because you're thinking about learning German and you want some more information about whether or not it's a difficult language to learn. So I'm going to cover some relatively easy and relatively difficult aspects of German in this video, and hopefully I will help you decide whether or not you want to learn it. So let's start with the relatively easy aspects of German. I'm not saying that German is easy to learn, but these are some aspects that make it relatively straightforward to learn, especially if you're an English speaker. So because you're watching this video already, I assume that you can speak English, and for an English speaker, German is a relatively easy language to learn because of the sentence structure. The sentence structure in German is quite similar to that of English. There is one aspect of German though which is relatively difficult, and I'm going to cover that later on in the video. But if you focus on the basic structure of German, you will notice that it's pretty much subject, verb, object in the same way as it is in English. So for example, ich habe einen Hund is I have a dog. So you've got the subject, the verb, and the object. The second aspect of German, which makes it a relatively easy or straightforward language to learn, is the verb conjugation. So just like in languages like French or Spanish, German has quite a regular structure in that you learn the endings that go with different subjects, and then you're able to conjugate verbs more easily. So you know that in the first person singular, verbs will often end in a certain ending, in a certain letter, and in the third person plural, they will end in another ending. So you can learn those endings and you will be able to learn new verbs and conjugate them correctly if you know the rules that govern conjugation. So the third aspect of German that makes it relatively easy to learn for English speakers is the tenses. So the tenses are quite similar to English tenses in that the structures that govern them are similar. So for example, the English phrase I have read translates into German as ich habe gelesen, which uses the same kind of structure, I have and then past participle. Similarly, the phrase I will read in the future tense translates into German as ich werde lesen. So again, the structure of that is quite similar, and it's relatively easy for English speakers to understand how it works. So the final aspect that I want to talk about is the pronunciation. So there are many pronunciation rules that you can learn and that govern the language. So for example, if you see the letter combination IE or EI in German, you will know how to pronounce these characters, such as in the article die or in the word nine. You will know that EI is pronounced in a certain way and IE is pronounced in a different way. Similarly, you can learn how to pronounce the umlaut characters, and once you know that, you will be able to pronounce words containing them correctly. So now I'm going to move on to the fairly difficult aspects of German. So these are things that put off a lot of learners. I was one of them. When I was 17, I first started learning German, and when I encountered those aspects, I thought German is not really for me because it's too difficult. But then I came back to the language later on, many years later, and I decided that it's actually possible to learn it because many people in the world speak German. You just have to be motivated and committed, and you will get through it. So let's get into it. The first aspect of German that's relatively difficult to learn are the cases. So obviously in languages such as English or French, cases don't really exist. I mean, they do exist, technically speaking, but they are not obvious. You don't have to learn about cases unless you're interested in linguistics or the structure of the language specifically. If you just want to speak English, you don't have to worry about cases. Whereas if you want to speak German, you do have to learn about cases. So what I mean by that is when you say something like I have a dog in German, then you will have to use a different case for the article and a different case for the noun. So in German, a dog is ein Hund, but if you're saying I have a dog, you have to say ich habe einen Hund. So you can't just say ein Hund, if you know what I mean. You have to change it depending on what it is that you're talking about and depending on the function that the noun, the dog, place in the sentence. Now, the second relatively difficult aspect of German is sentence structure. And basically I mentioned at the start that sentence structure in German is relatively easy because it resembles that of English. But actually, when you get into more complex sentences, you will notice that the sentence structure is very different. So often the verb will go at the end of the sentence, and when you're talking to somebody, sometimes you will not know what they're talking about until they've finished the sentence. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but just if you imagine saying a sentence like, I would like to read a book, then you've got two verbs in that sentence, like and read. Like will go in the kind of normal place in the sentence, and read will go at the end of the sentence. So that's what makes the sentence structure slightly more complex than what it's like in English. And the third one that I want to focus on, it's not something that is impossible to overcome. It's a challenge that exists in many different languages, and is the pronunciation and the fact that German contains some sounds that don't actually exist in English. So for example, the sound in the word ich, which is I, it's not a sound that exists in English, so you have to sort of master that. Similarly, the way the letter R is pronounced in German is slightly different to how it's pronounced in English. It is possible for English speakers to learn those sounds because they're not sort of impossible, but they pose a kind of a slight challenge to learners. So these are the three aspects: cases, sentence structure, and pronunciation, that might make German slightly more difficult to learn. But I definitely encourage you to learn German. It's a very interesting language. It opens up a lot of opportunities for reading literature, watching films, and so on. So I definitely encourage you to learn it if you are interested. So I hope you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I talk about learning languages, and I publish new videos regularly. So make sure you like this video as well, and I'll see you next time. Bye!